Hello, everyone, and welcome back live on the Scaleway scene for today. So I'll be hosting that discussion panel with my dear fellow jury member here. Hi, Nigel. Hi, Jérome.
Hi, Emmanuelle.
Hello.
You're done playing with Minecraft?
Not Minecraft, because I wasn't able to set up the Minecraft account, but I was able to briefly join that FPS game, what was that, Exotic or something like that. And I was saying to the other ones, that's pretty impressive because it's the first time of my life that I install a Quake-like game with my package manager. So I think it's the year of Linux on desktop officially.
Yeah, so basically you're going to create maybe the new Steam on Linux?
I think there is already one, but...
Yes, it's true, but, well, you don't have the same panel, I guess. So I'm really happy to be there with you. I had no idea at the beginning that when I was going to prepare Breakathon that I will be the one fixing stuff all the afternoon. Now I know that. So it gives me a little break to be here with you. So what I suggest is just that we go on and start discussing and about what, Kubernetes, I guess, because that's what we, let's say, have in common, maybe. So maybe I'll start and you'll catch me where you want, and we can discuss different topics, okay? And we'll do that related to Kubernetes and related to different categories of challenges that we propose to our participants today. So I'm going to be sitting all afternoon. I'm really curious about your experience of the different type of users you have using containerized application and Kubernetes, because it's I don't know for you, but there are people, we have customers that are from all kind of levels on those technologies.
So for me, and it's going to be interesting because I do a lot of training and Nigel also does a lot of training, I believe. And so for me, it was pretty interesting because for Kubernetes, it started with lots of ops folks, like the ops folks who had their dev teams getting super excited and hyped about Docker, and suddenly they're like, oh no, we have to put that in production, what are we going to do? And then comes Kubernetes and ops get excited, and then they realize they need to learn about this, and that's how I end up with a bunch of ops teams in my trainings. At least that was the case in 2018, 2019. And then since then, I've seen a slow shift where we still have a bunch of ops folks, but more and more developers are also joining that because they just want to know what's going to happen. They want to know where they run. They need to understand Kubernetes better to do a better job at deploying their apps on Kubernetes. So I still get ops folks, but an increasing share of developers as well.
I think, so I would agree with that, Jérome. I'll tell you something that I'm seeing a lot more at the moment, and I think it was a real 2020 thing, and I expect to see it go on into 2021 as well. But I'm starting to see a lot more people coming in from the more traditional enterprises, like your big banks and pharma, organizations that tend to be slower to adopt new technologies. So I probably saw a similar mix that Jérome did of ops and dev people, but originally they were all from either smaller companies or they were, I'm not a fan of the term, but like born in the cloud startups that just did everything in the cloud. But now I'm starting to see a lot of people that work for companies that have a lot of on-premises stuff and have a lot of more like legacy applications, and really like not super new to the cloud, but super new to the idea of containers and orchestration. And I get a lot of people coming along that just struggle with even the concept of things like an API. So your traditional, like maybe VMware people and your networking people and your DBAs and people like that, I'm starting to see those guys coming along as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. I understand what you're saying. We have, in my case, I used to be a developer. I was not at all in the DevOps world before. But when you dig into it, you can really see the possibilities that that it gives you, and you can see that it's a way also to adapt and transform your applications and software. And the thing is, it's very hard to take that first step for some of the customers, like you said, like big companies, big banks with monolith applications. It's something that is that can be scary, and also, the trend is to go to microservices and serverless, and that's damn scary for when you're having a monolith application, kind of a legacy software.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Do you want us to say something on that?
Oh, you can say something on everything you want, Nigel. The only thing I have to say is that I won't sing.
Yeah, no, so it's really interesting that as you start to see these more traditional companies come up, learning curve for the staff there, for their engineers. There's also like a huge amount of organizational change that needs to go on in these companies. And it really needs to have support from the top, C-level executive type people to say, we are going to change the way our organization operates. Because I think it would be very hard and not really a very good thing to do, to take like a traditionally structured organization and to try and go all cloud native with it, because it's more than just a technology, it's a mindset change. So the organization has to change, management has to understand, team structures have to change, business practices and things have to change. And there's quite often a lot of pushback for things like that because people are afraid of change as well. So I see that, and it's a shame because this technology is so enabling if you grasp it. But when I contrast that with the companies and the people I was helping learn Docker and Kubernetes in previous years, these people that are more kind of born in the cloud, they were game for it. They just wanted it. They were hungry. Whereas organizations are all traditional organizations are almost being forced to come to the party, if that makes sense.
Same, yeah. I see the same shift where in the first years it was super excited folks were like, okay, I'm starting to explore this, but I want to learn more with you and it's going to be awesome. And now we have also more folks who are like, okay, my manager said I had to be there, but I don't know if I'm gonna like it. Yeah. So of course for us it's a little bit harder in that case to get these folks kind of engaged and excited about the technology. But I think we do a pretty good job about it once we show them, okay, this is what you really can do with it. This is all the pain from that crappy app that used to page you at 3 a.m, and we're gonna show you how with this health check thing, now Kubernetes is gonna restart it for you, and it won't wake you up in the middle of the night. I'm kind of simplifying the story a little bit, but it's the kind of stuff that gets them to really get it.
Yeah, it brings back memories of getting up at 3 a.m. Thank you for that, Jérome.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, I guess change is always scary, and it's for big application. It's a complete change. It's a complete change. And do you think it's a change that is mandatory today for a company in IT to say that at some point they have to move on from their old infrastructure?
So I think it is. I quite often draw the comparison to VMware. I remember when VMware was, when it was new in the first organization that I deployed any VMware. And I remember I was sat in a meeting with the data center manager and the help desk manager, who were great guys, don't get me wrong, but I think they were not keen for the change. And they were very much, yeah, this sounds good, but keep your hands off the production estate and you can do it in test and dev and things like that. And of course, eventually we got them on board, and probably the whole organization now, I don't know them anymore, but they'll be running probably 90% of their workloads on virtual machines. Now, if they hadn't, and if they'd stuck with physicals and resisted the change to virtualization, of course, their costs would be way higher, their time to market would be way longer, they would be way less flexible as an organization. So they'd be behind where they are now. And I think the move to containers and to orchestrating containers and microservices and things like that it's kind of like that change to VMware, only it's way more fundamental. So if you never got on board with VMware, you'd be quite far behind now as an organization. And I think if you don't get on board with containers and microservices and cloud native stuff, you will be even further behind and almost put your entire business at risk. And if you're an individual, you know, whatever your job is at the moment, I think if you don't get on board with this stuff, your career will be behind other people's. And I really don't think anybody wants that. It's very much like Jérome said, once we can convince them that it's not super scary and we can show them just one or two benefits, then people tend to get on board. But I really do feel like if you don't do this as an individual or as an organization, you're going to get left behind. And we don't want that. Yeah,
I echo that. Maybe I'm going to put a tiny little bit of nuance in that, in the sense that it's a little bit as if somebody were asking me like, oh, do I really need to learn to drive, or do I really need to learn English or something like that? And I would say, well, it kind of depends on where you are and which context you are in. You know, like if you live somewhere in the Midwest, you probably need to know how to drive indeed, because otherwise your life is going to be difficult. And same thing, like if you live, let's say, in the Western tech world, it's great to speak English, but if you're in the middle of China, it's absolutely not mandatory and you can do great without it. So I would say there are some industries, some segments where yes, I'm going to even be like 200% to everything Nigel said. There are some industries today where you really need to get on board with containers and stuff, because you know, it's a little bit maybe like Linux 10 years ago or something like that. Like, yeah, sure, you can code on a Mac, on Windows or whatever, but your code is going to run on a Linux server. That's the end of it. So it's important to know how to navigate that. And then sure, there might be some industries where you can do without containers, but not because of a technical blocker, more because of a cultural blocker, I would say. I remember when you mentioned virtualization, I had similar stories 15-ish years ago with folks being like, oh, no, we will never be able to run that in VMs. And then be like, so actually, last weekend I was bored and I moved the whole VoIP platform on some VMs, and apparently it works. So we're doing that, right? And so I think it's good. It's the same thing with containers and Kubernetes. I think everything can run inside it. And sure, there's going to be people being like, oh, I don't want my this or that to run in containers and in Kubernetes, but I think they're wrong. Now, does it have to? Not necessarily. But saying no to containers or Kubernetes just out of principle is going to be a drag, and it's going to put you behind for sure.
Can I just say something else quickly on that, please, Emmanuelle? Like I echo what Jérome said there. On the technical side of things, so away from like maybe cultural things that might mean it's not right, I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years telling people that Kubernetes is not for everybody. And there are loads of, like, if you're a small shop, if you don't have a lot of engineering talent or budget and things like that, just purely on the technical side, I really, while Kubernetes is not for everybody and containers might not be, I do feel like the number of people that it's not for, it is kind of shrinking all the time. I'm not saying it'll go to zero and that everybody will need it, but like if it was like this before, I feel like every year it's getting more accessible for more and more people and more organizations.
Word, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's what we're trying to do. Well, it can be with a product like ours, or it can be with your trainings and all the everything that you do every day. I mean, that helps people to get inside it without being too scared, too afraid, and without making it so difficult to get into new technology and that new stuff. And I join you on the fact that it's really something that has to be like a management level. And there is also the question of the price, because, well, changing the way that your production environment is built, it's an investment to do. So we all agree, I think, that it's an investment worth doing. But yeah, it's also understandable sometimes that it can be, well, money is in the balance too. Oh, that question is boring. I'm going to. I'm sorry. Yeah, so we defined 4 categories for our participants for the Breakathon. So let's go a bit more into the front part and into the event itself. So first of all, did you have do you have an overview of the challenges? Did you have a look at them, or not that much?
I looked at what was asked from the participants, and I even downloaded a couple of the AI data sets to have a look, but that's as far as I went, to be honest.
Well, that's better than me, Jérome. I did look at them previously. I'm planning to take a bit of a closer look after this. I know the categories and things like that for sure, though.
Yeah. Oh, well, I bet you, I mean, you were working this afternoon, so you just joined us. So it's kind of a tricky question, but, well, wanted to ask it. Wanted to ask your, if you have I don't know, a feeling, an opinion about the challenges, or maybe what you could have seen on the Discord.
Has deployed that odd game server once and kind of has an idea of how to get that on Kubernetes. So I like that kind of stuff because it doesn't feel like there is a unique way to win and score the point. It's going to be really all over the map, and I really like that.
Yeah, this was really the idea.
Just real quick, Emmanuelle, I'm super keen to see what comes through on
just we're going to be cuts. Just 1 second. Okay. Sorry, there was a little technical thingy in something not Kubernetes related. I promise that works. Kubernetes works. But yeah, so if we go back to the challenges, the purpose was really to try to get everyone on board and say that nobody was going to be led behind, and that you can pick whatever you feel comfortable with and just go for it. And the funny thing is that we found that there was a lot of participants that just arrived on the Discord without a team and say, "Hey, I'm more working on
Do you know, I think the community in general, like if I can call it the cloud native community, for
please
want of a better
don't.
term, I just think it's full of such great people that are so open to collaborating and to helping each other. And I know that at an event like this, you obviously get a lot of people that want to get involved and are, forward thinkers and not afraid to try new things. But that the Discord's been super busy and super interactive. I just think the whole community, and it's one of the things that I try and get across to people, and I'm sure Jerome's the same, that when you're helping people take their first steps with these kinds of technologies, to say, look, of course, it's natural to be kind of a little bit afraid at first and a little bit like, what am I getting into? But the community in general is awesome.
Yeah, totally. And it's really, I don't know, it's really something that before I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting something like that. It's like sometimes you're just afraid to ask for help or ask a question or do something on technology you don't know. So you're kind of on the side and you try to, and at some point you say, oh, damn it, I don't have ego anymore. I mean, that's I've been on this topic for too long, so let's go for it. And at the end, nobody's judging. The community is awesome. There's all those people just answering and asking questions without any judgment, just to share within the community. And that's really something that's really discovered it with Kubernetes. I mean, I didn't know any of it when I arrived at Scaleway. And people said Kubernetes was magic. Well, something that I read, right? Everybody read that. It's not true. It's a big lie. It's a big, ugly lie. But you only discover it once you are in it. It's too late. That's too late. But still, when you dig deeper, and then you find the magic. It's just a longer path.
Yeah, agreed. And at some point you realize that the magic was just like 3 YAML files in a trench coat, and
3
YAML scripts 3 YAML files in a trench coat. But no, I think on the community, that just crossed my mind when we were talking about that. I think I remember in the Linux community of my early days learning computers in Linux, let's say 20-something years ago. And maybe I'm going to ruffle some folks here, but I think the Linux community has kind of an asshole problem. And there was this whole thing on being on some kind of edgy IRC channels where, there would be like the newcomers on one hand asking the stupid questions and the old timers on the other and be like, why do people never read the man page, etc. But that created this kind of idea that sysadmins are just a bunch of jaded folks who don't want to help people and just hide in their offices, etc. And I have the impression, maybe I'm just completely fooling myself, but I have the impression that the first stones of the cloud native community who were on a very different, they were completely different. Like the first folks who were out there, like Kelsey Hightower, for instance, were just kind of, oozing kindness and helpfulness and helping each other and being truly kind, etc. And I think that's making the huge difference that Nigel was describing. At least that's how I perceive it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, it's funny. I was just to hear you say some of those stories just bring back interaction with sysadmins or people like not that long ago. I mean, I hope, but still.
Jérome is no longer welcome in the Linux community.
Can you really do that? I think it's too late for that.
Yeah.
Well, so there is a category that has only 2 challenges because I was out of ideas, to be honest. And but it's there is a topic that I really started digging about a year ago, and it's security within Kubernetes. And I realized that when I was a developer before, and well, we were using, well, sometimes sometimes we were using cloud providers, but usually we were using dedicated servers, you know, maintained by one guy, and well, you know the story, I guess. And I never really cared about security at that time. And I think a lot of people still doesn't care about it because it's scary. I mean, you put Kubernetes and you put security next to it, like, it's 2 of those scariest things you can see from outside when you don't know it. And I have the feeling that people are afraid that coming to a cloud environment, they are going to struggle with the security. And I think that's a false statement. I think that's something, it's something that never scared them before. Like, they had very bad security on their dedicated server and they didn't care because, like, yeah, but it's physical. I can see it. Like if I can put it in a box, in a safe, and just lock it, and it's safe, and that's it. And now in the cloud, I can't. And I think it's just exactly the same issue. It's just that now, maybe we have tools to make it easier and more accessible for everyone to just be safe with whatever application you want to run.
Yeah, I think first when you brought up security, I was thinking about the 2 presentations that we had at the meetup just 1 hour ago. One of them on OPA, Open Policy Agent, and the other one on Falco. And they're both very emblematic of what we can do today with container security, or if I want to, you know, like cloud native security. Ooh. And seriously though, one part is the whole policy enforcement, where and to explain that, I'm going to travel back in time to a few years ago when I remember I was at Docker and we had like this big kind of PR crisis because some folks had made an analysis on vulnerabilities on the Docker Hub, and they were like, oh my God, like the vast majority of the images on the Docker Hub have vulnerabilities like all over the place. It's a nightmare, containers suck, etc. And I had written a blog post to say, no, you know what? That's great news. It's awesome because at least you can do that. Try to do that with your crappy VM image and etc. and all the hundreds or thousands of AMIs or whatever that you have. There is just no way that you're going to do that. And here, somebody was able to kind of crawl the Docker Hub and do that for you kind of for free. That's awesome. Sure, we see that we have a bunch of security issues, but now we know that we have these security issues. Before, we were completely in the dark. We were just hoping that our, quarterly security report was telling that everything was fine, but the quarterly security report was missing half of the VMs and half of the VPSs and maybe other, like shadow IT, etc. Now we are talking about like software, supply chain security, that kind of stuff, which is not something new with containers, by the way. Just have a look to the left pad story with Node.js, where like one person pulled a package somewhere, and it's like pulling a card in a castle made of cards, and everything just falls all over. So these things are not new, but with containers, I feel that we have a better view, a more generic way to tackle them. Instead of needing like one tool for my Java supply chain and another for my Node supply chain, another for Go, etc. Now I have one thing for containers, and since I deploy only with containers, at least I have like this one kind of single point where I can inspect everything that goes there and know what's going on. So I think we actually made some pretty big progress there, and the second part about Falco, that's another thing that I found really interesting with containers, and that brings me back to when people were asking, well, are containers, secure or not? Is it safe to run my stuff in containers compared to VMs? And I was like, no, you don't get it. The question is not, do you want to have a belt or suspenders, but you can actually have both. So you can have VMs and containers, and that way you get the security benefits of both. So yes, Docker and Kubernetes and containers bring some new security challenges to the table, but they also help us a lot with all the challenges that we had before. They let us kind of industrialize that, streamline that. So I think that's great news.
I agree with Jérome, certainly on the image scanning. Like, I remember the first time I saw image scanning on Docker Hub, and the reports that you got on the different levels of vulnerabilities and things. I genuinely remember saying to people that this is an amazing technology, but be super careful how you pitch it to your boss, because as soon as you show her these reports that are super detailed, but it highlights all of the potential vulnerabilities, then it's your job to go and fix them. So that's just kind of a funny story, but I totally agree. That's kind of a, those kind of tools and those kind of insights we did not have before. So there is a little bit of a danger that now that we have them and we have better insight, that it's like zooming in on something, isn't it? You start to notice all of the things that you didn't notice before. But I do think as well, just in general, that security is much more front and center these days. Security vulnerabilities can make, global news in mainstream news. People that get hacked are in the news all the time. So it's much more of a thing these days. It isn't so much that, moving to the cloud is more dangerous. I would almost say that, the companies that run your cloud probably know way more about running secure infrastructure than you did when you were building your own data center. They've got more experts on staff, more people, and more resources. So I don't think moving to the cloud should be scary from a security perspective, but I do think that the container model, if we take it outside of containers running inside of virtual machines, just running namespace containers, that does open up a lot more things to be aware of and to be potentially scared of. And I think we're doing better now than we did before, but I still feel like we need to make it simpler to be able to do things like drop capabilities and app armor profiles and all of these other things that we know the technologies are there to secure namespace containers. I just feel like they're still a little bit hard sometimes to deploy with like not even just a kind of baseline profile that says, yes, it's good for most, but to be able to tweak it and tune it and stuff. We, as a community, I think we need to do better. And we are starting to see technologies and companies and people come to market to make this better, but I feel like if you were to ask this question in a year from now, I think we'll be in a much better place. And then a year after that, we're just I hope, going to get better and better at this.
Yeah, thank you. And I really have the, how to say, the feeling that it's more about those issues have always been there, but just the fact that the ignorance, the fact that you didn't know, it's kind of made it not scary just because by ignoring it, like, okay, I'm just going to do if I didn't know because I don't. And now, yeah, when you when you saw those reports, it highlights so many things that you, yeah, of course, it's kind of scary, but you know what you have to fix. I mean, that's the value of it. That's the treasure of it, and that's a chance, I think, to be able to repair before even it breaks.
Yeah.
So we're going to be almost done here, guys. But well, I'm not done with you. You will have me for a while, but we still have a few minutes to talk. So I'm just going to ask you if you have some advices for any kind of profiles, whatever, if it is a developer, a DevOps, someone new to Kubernetes, maybe someone a bit scared, even if it's a CEO of a company that has to go through all those changes for his monolithic application or whatever. What would be the advice that you would give to just go for it?
Get Nigel's course, of course.
And book.
To teach you.
Buy the book.
You know what? Genuinely, right? So, of course, I would say don't be afraid because it's actually not as scary as you think. But I say this a lot as well, right? I feel like we live in a golden age of technology learning. Like when I was learning Novell NetWare and Windows NT4 and stuff, I had to beg my boss to borrow this awful, huge, compact, dusty PC with one of those, you know, those monitors that were like this thick and you'd break your back lifting them. And I had to put it in the corner of my bedroom and CDs to build and install stuff or floppy disks. And, you know, the best way to learn something is to break it. So I would break NetWare and Windows NT all the time. But then it was like 4 hours to rebuild it. Whereas now, the ability to spin things up in the cloud and playgrounds and things, if you're a techie person and an engineer, you're like, there aren't any excuses anymore not to learn something because it's never been easier. You can spin stuff up in the cloud and in playgrounds and break it and rebuild it and break it and rebuild it just like that. It's the kind of stuff that honestly 20 years ago or whatever, when I was starting out my career, well, I was going to say I would have dreamed of this, but it was so far ahead that I probably couldn't even have dreamed of it. So there are no excuses anymore. The resources out there, you know, books and training courses and getting people in to train you, of course, but also to get your hands on. It's just never been easier. Just have a go and don't be afraid.
Yeah.
You agree with that? Nothing to add, Jérome?
No, that's I really echo that. So many things are getting easier and we can do that faster. And even, you know, like now when I need something, when I need to test something on a Kubernetes cluster, in maybe a couple of minutes, I can get 3 Kubernetes clusters, one on my local machine, actually 2 on my local machines and 1 in the cloud or the other way around. That's actually like recently I was testing for a weird regression issue in, I think it was Kubernetes 122 or something like that, where basically you kill a node and normally failover happens and it didn't. And I was like, that's not right. And so I had to test that again and again and again. And it kind of sucks because each time you break a cluster, because each time you need to really like destroy a node and see what happens. So it's the kind of stuff a while ago that would have been really annoying because, as Nigel said, you need to reinstall everything and put everything back in place. And now it feels more like you're in this like in this recent sci-fi movie like Edge of Tomorrow, where each time you die you can just restart the day. Like, this is super easy.
You respawn your cluster. You just respawn your cluster.
Yeah, exactly. I can't remember how many times I recreated a cluster on my machine with different combinations of version, with Minikube, with Key3D, with Kind, and how many times I spun up clusters on Kapsule and on Linode and like other things, because I was like, where is this bug and what's going on? And I had to wait longer for the Kubernetes failover timeout, which is basically 5 minutes, than the time it took to deploy clusters. Deploying clusters, like 1 minute, 2 minutes. And then deploying my stuff on the clusters, less than 1 minute. And then waiting for the cluster to crash and maybe fail over or not, 5 minutes. That's really incredible. So maybe we sound like, really old men when we say that, but I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's also the kind of magic of being in IT in general, is that we always have new technology and new stuff to dig in and discover and learn. And I think that why we are all here today is all just a community who wants to learn. And that's pretty much it. So thank you guys for being with us today. I'll catch you on the Discord later. Well, just after, I guess. And maybe let's play some Minecraft. See you.
We learned something today.